Good morning, friends. I welcome you all to the next class on industrial management. We are currently discussing Unit 5. This Unit 5 discusses two important issues. One is plant maintenance, other one is industrial safety. This is a third and final class on Unit 5. Let's have a quick recall of what we discussed in our earlier classes. In the first class, we concentrated on plant maintenance. We discussed the objectives and advantages of good plant maintenance. Then we classified maintenance and discussed different types of maintenance. We expanded the concept of maintenance to include total quality, total productive maintenance. We discussed the techniques and benefits of TPM, total productive maintenance. In the second class, we concentrated on industrial safety. We discussed the concept of safety as well as certain myths and realities associated with the safety. We discussed the factors the affecting the safety and also the effect of accident on different stakeholders like employers, employees. We also discussed the causes of accidents and safety measures which we can take to prevent the possibility of accidents. We also discussed the role of the safety engineer, the supervisor, and safety committee with respect to the prevention of accidents. Now, in this class, we'll concentrate on the fire safety, that is fire prevention and protection against safety. Let's continue. So this is the Unit 5 and Class 3 of Unit 5. Here, we'll be discussing the fire prevention in industries. So that is the fire, the prevention and protection against the fires. Fire essentially involves the three components. We need the fuel, we need heat, we also need a supporting environment of oxygen. These can cause the fires. Now we have a different fire extinguishers which provides the protection against fire. So that is going to be the topic of our discussion today. Let us first have a quick overview of the content we are going to cover in today's class. First, let's watch an informative video which gives a broad idea of the fire safety in industries. Then we'll go on to classify the fires into different categories. Then we'll discuss about the fire extinguishers which are used against different types of fires. Finally, we'll also have an interactive quiz. Now let's go on to watch an interesting video which is highly informative, which gives a broad idea about the types of fires and the protection against fires in industries.
If a fire started in your company, would you know what to do? In this program, we show you what different types of fire there are, how you can prevent a fire, and what you must do if fire breaks out. It's vital that you're aware of fire hazards in your workplace. By being alert and reacting appropriately, if an accident happens, you can prevent expensive damage and save lives. It's therefore important that you're fully aware of the safety procedures in your company and take fire drills seriously. What you remember from this training may at some point save your life. In any war, it's important to know the enemy. Since mankind learned to control fire, it has been both friend and foe. Without fire, we'd be helpless against nature. Modern production processes would also be impossible. But there is a darker side to fire. It can destroy. An uncontrolled and unsupervised fire destroys everything in its path, including people. In this program, we're going to consider fire as an enemy. Combustion only occurs when three essential elements are in place. If one of these elements is not present, a fire won't start. If one is taken away once the fire has started, then the fire will go out. Firstly, fire needs fuel or something flammable. The fuel can be a solid material, a liquid, or a gas. Secondly, there must be sufficient oxygen to keep the fire going. Fire is fed by oxygen. A fire cannot start in an oxygen-free environment. Such a situation is almost non-existent naturally on Earth. Air contains around 21% oxygen. We need around 20% in order to breathe, but fire only requires around 16% oxygen in order to thrive. The third element is something to cause ignition. In some cases, a spark is sufficient. In other cases, adequate heat suffices. When these three elements combine, it starts a chain reaction that leads to a fire. Different types of material require different levels of heat in order to combust. But with sufficient heat and a supply of oxygen, almost everything around you can burn. Fire is subdivided into various categories, depending on the material or the fuel. You must be aware of these fire categories because you can't employ the same method to extinguish every type of fire. If you've ever seen an oil fire, you probably know that water just makes it worse, whilst putting out an electric fire with water is likely to result in electrocution. The most common fire is a Category A fire. Normal flammable materials such as wood, paper, and textiles are the fuel for Category A fires. Water is an excellent way of extinguishing a Category A fire. Category B fires are started by combustion of liquids. A petrol fire is a Category B fire. There's a significant risk of explosion with such fires. Category C fires are started by combustion of gases. A propane fire is a Category C fire. There's also a risk of explosion with these fires. If the fuel for a fire is a flammable metal, it's known as a Category D fire. It's unlikely that you'll encounter these fires in everyday life, but they do occur. Metals such as magnesium, titanium, and sodium are potential fuel for Category D fires. Many fires start in kitchens, normally through unsaturated fats overheating and igniting. If your workplace has a large commercial kitchen, it's vital to have a Category F fire extinguisher, a deep fat fryer or fat fire extinguisher. Fires caused by electricity are not regarded as a specific fire category, as electricity itself can't start fires, but it's a common cause of fires. This is often due to short-circuiting or an overloaded wall socket. Electrical fires can generally be put out using a Category A or B fire extinguisher. If a fire breaks out, you need to identify what type of fire it is and know what to do, depending on the fire category. Whether you work in a factory or an office, you work with flammable materials. Remember, all a fire needs is oxygen, fuel, and a way of igniting through heat or a spark. If you work in an office, make sure that there are no large stacks of paper or rubbish lying around. This includes making sure that waste paper bins aren't overflowing. If you smoke, observe the warning notices and only smoke in designated areas. Make sure you put out your cigarette and dispose of it in the appropriate place. A burning cigarette stub, carelessly tossed in a waste bin, has been the cause of a number of serious fires. If you work with equipment that uses flammable materials or needs cleaning with rags that become greasy, store everything that may be flammable in a sealed metal tin, well away from any potential source of ignition. In office blocks, the main cause of fire is arson. Always adhere strictly to safety measures and report any suspicious activity. If you work with materials which can potentially cause a Category B or C fire, such as flammable liquids or gases, take extra precautions. These materials may only be used in well-ventilated spaces and must be kept away from anything which can produce sparks. Flammable liquids must be stored in sealed, leak-proof containers. For all flammable liquids, use only approved containers, certainly where a large quantity is stored in a building. Outside storage sites must be at a safe distance from buildings. A correct category fire extinguisher must be located outside within 23 meters of these storage sites and inside within 3 meters of the storage site. Some companies are classified as high-risk areas owing to the materials with which they work. These include sites where benzene and other flammable liquids are processed or stored. If you work in a high-risk area, you must observe all the prescribed fire prevention measures. Fortunately, most of us will never be involved in a Category D fire, as they're only caused by flammable metals. The incredible heat required to start this type of fire makes them extremely dangerous. If you work with flammable metals such as magnesium, titanium, or sodium, make sure you always observe the safety procedures. If your job involves preparing food, take extra care. Never leave a pan of oil on the stove unattended. Don't put anything on a burner unless you're sure that the burner will not cause a fire. In large commercial kitchens, make sure there's always a Category F fire extinguisher at hand. Never try to put out an oil fire with water, as it will spread. Although a fire caused by electricity isn't given an official fire category, it's a common cause of fire. The burning elements can be extinguished using Category A and B extinguishers. Remember, don't use water, or you run the risk of being electrocuted. All electrical equipment must have its wiring and fittings checked regularly for wear and damage. Defective electrical equipment is a fire waiting to happen, so report defects immediately. Make sure extension leads aren't worn or broken, and never run them under flooring or carpets. If you see exposed wiring, turn off the electricity and get it repaired or replaced straight away. Secure extension leads and cables away so they can't be walked over or damaged accidentally. Make sure that electrical motors are in good working order and that they're clean. Oil and dirt is the perfect environment for a fire to start, particularly if the motor becomes overheated. Don't let this happen. Never use a fuse which is higher than the circuit specification, as it can cause overheating and fire. Wall power points must not be overloaded. If 2 connections are needed, then 2 plugs must be used. Don't connect more than 1 heat-producing appliance per socket. For example, in a kitchen, a coffee machine and the microwave must be connected at different sockets and not right next to each other. Switch off at the socket when the equipment is not in use. With electrical equipment, watch out for strange smells, such as burning plastic or wiring. This may be an early warning sign that a fire is starting. Switch off the appliance, unplug it if it's safe to do so, and investigate the cause. Ensure also that light bulbs in your workplace don't come into contact with flammable materials. For example, an unshaded bulb in an office light could easily cause a fire if it came in close contact with fuel, such as a sheet of paper. Lights are designed to take a bulb of a specific wattage. Never use a higher wattage bulb. However careful you are, the fact remains that fires do happen, and if they do, you must know what to do. Otherwise, you may not survive. If the alarm goes off, the emergency services go into action. Leave the building immediately, not 5 or 10 minutes later when you finish sending an email or packed your bag and put on your coat. Now. If your company uses other alarms such as whistles, sirens, or light signals, make sure you know which one's the fire alarm. Some buildings also use a public address system to help staff by giving them further instructions. Remember, if you hear the fire alarm, act quickly. Leave everything and move quickly, but don't panic. If you're the last to leave the room, close the door behind you, but don't lock it. Locked doors can hinder the emergency services. Don't assume the fire alarm is just a drill. Even if you can't see a fire or smell any smoke, there may be a fire in another part of the building. Fire can spread very rapidly and is highly unpredictable. If you ignore a fire alarm, you could end up trapped in a burning building. If you hear the alarm, you need to know where to go according to the evacuation plan for your building. This may be a different route from the one you usually take. This is why fire drills are so important and why you must take them seriously. During a drill, it's easy to see where you're going, but would you be able to find your way out if the room was full of smoke or there was no electricity? Taking part in a fire drill is the best way of familiarizing yourself with exit procedures. It's hard to remain calm during a fire, so make sure that you know where the emergency exits are before you need them. In some buildings, there'll be more than one escape route. Fire is so unpredictable that it's vital to have alternative ways of getting out. Never use the lift to leave a burning building. You could end up trapped, and some lifts don't function in the event of fire. It may be that certain employees have special responsibilities as part of the emergency plan in the event of an emergency. Fire safety officers, for example, check that everyone has left the building. They also draw up special evacuation plans for disabled staff. Escape routes should be the shortest routes possible, with sufficient space to allow all staff through, including people in wheelchairs. Employers must also mark doors that may be mistaken for emergency exits. A no exit sign may mean that someone ends up trapped in a burning building. Exits must never be blocked. All staff must be familiar with the escape routes and know where to assemble following an emergency evacuation. The assembly point must be at a safe distance from the building. The evacuation plan for your company may include an escape area. This is a pre-designated area inside the building and away from the fire. Observe the evacuation plan for your company with regard to this escape area. If you have to leave a building and you come across a closed door, use the back of your hand to feel whether the door is hot. If it is, don't open it. This may be the only thing between you and the fire. In this case, you fall back on your second escape route. Remember, remaining calm may save your life. Think of the fire drill and don't panic. If you become trapped, try to block the ventilation holes and the chinks around the doors. Keep down on the floor where there's less smoke and more oxygen. If your clothes catch on fire, don't start running. This provides the fire with more oxygen and will fan the flames. Do precisely the opposite. Stop, drop to the ground, and roll backwards and forwards to smother the flames. Remember that you must always leave the building if you hear a fire alarm. However, there may be situations where you'll have to fight the fire yourself. You should always know where the fire extinguishers are located and how they should be used. Let's say that you're at work and notice smoke. A small fire has broken out. Sound the alarm immediately and find a fire extinguisher. If you can't bring things under control, stop trying and get out. Never put yourself in a situation where the fire is between you and your escape route. Always stand with your back to the exit so that you don't become trapped. Extinguishers, which were introduced to the market after the 1st of January 1997, must comply with the new European legislation, which is Norm NEN AND 3. Make sure that you use the correct fire extinguisher, depending on the fire category. Each fire extinguisher is marked with a category sign. This indicates clearly which category of fire the extinguisher is suitable for. Some fire extinguishers have multiple ratings, and most will have instructions on how they should be used. First, pull out the security pin, and then aim the fire extinguisher at the base of the fire. Whilst holding the fire extinguisher upright, squeeze the trigger firmly. Then, move the fire extinguisher from side to side over the base of the flames. Fire is dangerous, unpredictable, and life-threatening. Remember the basic steps in the event of a fire. Know what types of fire can occur in your workplace. Follow the correct safety procedures. If you don't, it could cost lives. Know how to fight a fire and which fire extinguisher to use. Know where the alarm is and how to escape. Hopefully, you'll never have to deal with a fire. But if you do, these instructions may help save your life.
Well, friends, we have seen an informative video about the fire. And now let's see what exactly is a fire. A fire is nothing but a self-sustaining chemical reaction. It is a self-sustaining chemical reaction which has got the 4 components. One component is something that starts fire, that is a fuel. That is, we need something to burn. So some inflammable material is a requirement for a fire to start. That is one. But this inflammable material alone cannot start a fire. We need a heat source. That means there should be a source of heat that heats the fuel to a degree where it can burn. These two also will not produce a fire in the absence of a third item. That is, the oxygen is also required to sustain, to support the fire. When these two are present and they interact, they produce the chemical chain reaction of oxidation. This chemical chain reaction is what we call the fire. Now, the 3 items give an idea about how to remove or how to protect against the fire. For removing the fire, we have to remove one of the items. Either fuel has to be taken away, or the source of heat should not be there to produce a fire, or oxygen should not be there to support the fire. By taking away any of the 3 things, we can extinguish the fire. So that is, these 3 are the items that cause the chemical reaction, and the absence of these 3 things can retard or can remove the chemical reaction. That's what we call the fire. Now let's go on to discuss the classes of fire. First we'll discuss the class A fire, which consists of ordinary combustible, the items we use in our day-to-day life like paper, wood, plastic, etc. Then we have got the class B fire. This makes use of the inflammable liquids as well as the inflammable gases. Next is the class C fire, that is caused due to the electrical reasons. Then we have got class B fire, that is where the metals catch fire. And we also have got class K fire, the kitchen fire or the cooking fire. Now, let us discuss these fires in a little more detail. Let us start with class A fire. The class A fire consists of all the ordinary combustible solids which we have in our workplace or even at our home. This include a number of items which can catch fire. Almost all are solid items. It is the wood can catch fire, the fabric can catch fire, the paper, the trash, the plastics. All those things are potentially fire causing elements. The fire caused by these elements are classified under class A. In our day-to-day life, these are the most common accidental fires which we see, either at industry or at home. The most common type of fire we encounter is class A fire. Next, let us see how do we extinguish a class A fire. If you see a class A fire, how can we extinguish it? The simplest way to extinguish a class A fire is by using the water. In fact, this is the only fire that can be extinguished with water. No other classes of fires can be extinguished with water except the class A. So a simple fire extinguisher for a class A fire can be a can of water or something, some device which can spray water in large quantities. What we see when we see the firemen extinguish fire in building, they bring the water in big containers. They use the huge amount of water to spray on the fire to extinguish the fire. There should be some pump mechanism to spray the water onto the fire. And also there are commercially available class A extinguishers for class A fires. The class A fires which are commercially available are identified by a symbol. In fact, all fire extinguishers have a specific marking so that people can easily identify what type of fire extinguisher is it. The marking for a class A fire is the letter A written on a green triangle. That is the marking. That is the identification symbol for a class A, the fire. Another alternative method of extinguishing class A fire is by what we call the smothering it. We have seen that if the clothes catch fire, we have to cover with a blanket and roll on the ground. That is the process for smothering. By smothering, we prevent the fire from coming in contact with the oxygen so that the enlarged fire does not spread. The smothering can be with a blanket or with the gloves. Small fires can be smothered with the gloves or some other article to smother the fire. The commercially available, the class A fire extinguishers usually use the monoammonium sulfate in a powder form. It has got very good smothering property because one of the ways of the extinguishing fire A, the class A fire is through smothering. Let's go on to discuss the class B fire. This class B fire includes two types of the fuels. One is either the inflammable liquid or inflammable gas. When we say liquid, we include most of the petroleum products such as oils, such as paints, kerosene, diesel, petrol, and also the gasoline. Typically, a class B fire is extinguished using the carbon dioxide. That is, the carbon dioxide is sprayed onto the fire under high pressure. It works in two ways. The carbon dioxide under pressure is very cold, so it reduces the temperature of the fuel, and then the carbon dioxide replaces the oxygen around the fire, so that the fire will not have the supporting environment to survive. That's how the carbon dioxide works. Coming to the class B extinguishers, as you have seen, typically the class B fire extinguishers contain carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide is also stored at a very cold temperature. So while using the extinguishers, we should take adequate care so that it is not sprayed on human beings or animals. One of the big advantage of class B extinguisher is that it does not produce any mess. This carbon dioxide get mixed with the surrounding air and escape, leaving nothing behind. We don't have any mess or uncomfortable things to clean when we use the carbon dioxide for extinguishing class B fires. We also need to remember that this class B fire can also be used to extinguish class A fire. That is, class B fire extinguishers can also be used on class A fires, even though they're a little costlier than the water spraying. The symbol for class B fire is letter B written on a red square. So this is the symbol for class B fire. Letter B is written on a red square. Let's go on to discuss the class C fire. The class C fire are caused by the electrical components. That is, the electrical components or the electricity is the root cause of class C fire. So these the fires are caused by different electrical devices such as motors, such as electrical appliances, the transformers. And in big industries, they use heavy electrically powered devices such as motors and transformers. These are one of the common causes of the fire in industries. They deal with huge the ratings of the current and voltage. On a smaller scale, this electrical fire can be caused in even in small industries or even at our home. The electrical fires can occur. To protect against these electrical fires, we need to use the overload surge protectors and other protective devices as per the electrical standards. Now let's see, how do we extinguish the class C fire? The class C fire is typically extinguished by a dry chemical that should not conduct electricity. So water is a very inappropriate thing for extinguishing class C fire because of its conduction property. This chemical is a very fine powder that smothers the fire and extinguishes it. But the main disadvantage of this type of fire extinguisher that it leaves a lot of mess behind. That means the particles, the dry chemical particles will be spread all over the place, and it will take a long time and effort to clean this mess caused by the spraying of the dry powder. So that is an disadvantage of class C fire. Also, we have to take the extra precaution to prevent breathing of the dry chemical powder, because when it is sprayed, it will be there all over the place. It will be there in the air. So we should take extra care to avoid breathing the powder, the chemical powder, which is contained in the class C fire extinguishers. This class C fire extinguisher can also be used on class A. It can also be used class B, the fires. Now coming to the marking or the symbol for the class C fire extinguisher, it is something like this. The class C fire extinguisher will be marked with the C on a blue circle. that is a blue circle background, and C written on that indicates the extinguisher is of class C type. The class C fire extinguisher contains the dry powder of monoammonium phosphate and sodium bicarbonate. They have got good smothering properties. Now let's continue to discuss class D fire. Class D fire uses a combustible metal, that is, the metal fires are typically class D fires, but all metals will not catch fire. Only certain metals can catch fire at high temperature. The metals like the titanium, magnesium, aluminum, potassium, etc. are the potential metals which are likely to catch fire. The good news is that we are not likely to come class D fire because they are very rare for two reasons. One is that they use the inflammable metals which we don't commonly use. Second, it needs a very high temperature to start the fire. That much high temperature is not produced in common the applications. So this class D fire is a danger usually in laboratories where the experimentation, where the high temperature, the processes are going on. In such places, the class D fires are likely to occur. The class D fire again uses a the powder agent for smothering the fire and also for reducing the temperature. This is the most difficult fire to extinguish. Among all the fires, the most difficult fire to extinguish is class D fire because of the extreme high temperature of burning. So here, the two things are to be accomplished for extinguishing this fire. The temperature has to be brought down. The oxygen supply has to be disconnected. Oxygen supply has to be cut off. Both things are essential for controlling class D fire. Let us come to the class D fire extinguishers. The class D fire extinguishers, usually class D fires are caused by the combustible metals. So we need to use a specific fire for extinguishing class D fire. So other type of extinguisher will not work here. It makes use of dry powder based the products for extinguishing the fire. Among all the fire extinguishers, the class D fire extinguishers are the most expensive in the market. Coming to the marking, it is marked something like this. Class D fire extinguishers are marked with letter D written on a yellow star. This is a marking for a class D fire extinguisher. The class D fire extinguisher can contain the powders of copper, sodium chloride, sand. These are some of the possible powders that can be used for class D extinguishers. But the efficient powder used against class D fire is what is known as M28. Usually in a M28 fire extinguisher, they will typically specify that it can be used only for class D fire. It cannot be used for class A fire consisting of the ordinary combustible wood, paper, etc. It cannot be used for inflammable liquids. It cannot be used for inflammable gases. That is, the only class D fire is extinguished by specific the powder M28. So this M28 is a special powder based on sodium chloride, and a number of the moisture repellent additives are added. Sodium chloride absorbs moisture, then the extinguisher will not work. So the addition of moisture repellent and the items which cause easy flow, the M28 powder is prepared. M28 extinguishes fire by two ways. One, it fuses with the metal surface and forms a crust. That means it creates minor reaction with the metal surface and forms a crust on that. This crust prevents contact between oxygen and the metal, extinguishing fire. But there is another problem. The extinguisher metal should not enter into the metal and weaken it. So the sodium chloride should not sink into the surface of the molten metal. For that, certain specific agents are added to prevent sinking of the extinguisher metals into the original the metal. Now we have got the class of fire, the cooking. Cooking, whether it is interesting or not, but it is an essential activity. We need cooking just for our survival. So we use a number of the oils and fat for cooking. These are potential fuels for causing fire hazards. That means the cooking fire is classified under class K, kitchen fire. We use a number of the inflammable items like cooking oils, the vegetable oils, vegetable fat, animal fat. All those things are the potentially the flammable material which can cause fire in the kitchen. It is always a concern in food processing industries. The extinguisher for class K fire or kitchen fire consists of the wet chemical, the extinguishers. They work on a principle what is known as the saponification. The saponification is a process on which it works. What we mean by this saponification is when we use alkaline mixtures such as potassium acetate, potassium citrate, the potassium carbonate, they react on the fat and cooking oils and produce a soapy layer. So this production of this soapy layer on the surface of the oils is what is called saponification. The formation of this soapy layer cuts off the supply of oxygen, which helps in extinguishing the fire. The symbol for class K fire is something like this. On a hexagon, on a black hexagon, letter K is written. It contains the items like potassium acetate, potassium citrate, potassium carbonate. Let's have a quick summary of the different fire extinguishers which we used. For class A fire, which consists of the ordinary combustible items like wood, paper, etc., we use an extinguisher which is class A type extinguisher, which has got an identification marking of letter A written on a green triangle. Next we have got the combustible liquids or gases. They are called class B fire and their extinguishers are class B extinguishers. The symbol for class B extinguisher is letter B written on a red square. Electricity can also cause the fire. That comes under class C fire. The class C extinguishers are marked by letter C written on blue circle. The metals are the most dangerous types of fires. Metals cause the devastating type of fires and most difficult to extinguish. So the extinguishers used for the metals are marked the D with a yellow star. And finally, we also have the kitchen fires. They have the K, letter K written in a black hexagon. These are the different the symbols used for the extinguishers. Now let's make a quick revision of what we discussed about the class A, B, C, D and K fire. The class A fire is caused by the ordinary combustible, the items, that is, it is caused by the wood, paper, cloth, etc. And we have seen that this is the most common type of fire we encounter in our day-to-day life. Then we have got class B fire, that is caused by the inflammable liquids and also the inflammable the gases. These inflammable things include the grease, oil, paint, solvents, etc. Then we have got a class C fire. Class C fires are typically caused by live electrical equipment, the electrical panels, electrical motors, electrical wirings, etc. are the causes of class C type of fire. Then a special type of fire is class D fire, which is due to combustible metal. The common metals are magnesium, aluminum, etc. are the combustible metal which can burn at high temperature. Then we have class K fire. There is a fire which we encounter in commercial cooking, the equipments. It is caused by the cooking oil, vegetable fats, vegetable oils, etc. These are the different class of fires. Now let's make a checklist of what are the items which can be used for what type of fire. That is, what type of fire extinguishers will work on what type of the fire. If I take water, water is also a fire extinguisher, but it will work only on class A fire. It will not work on any of the other type of fire. That means none of the other type of fires can be extinguished with water except the class A type of the fire. Please note that here the B is written twice. This B refers to the combustible liquids. This B refers to combustible gases. So we have made a distinction between combustible liquids and gases. Coming to the foam as a fire extinguisher, it can work on class A fire, it can work on class B fire, and also it can work on kitchen type of fire because that can cause saponification to extinguish the fire from the cooking oils. We have got the dry powder, the fire extinguishers. It can be used for class A fire, it can be used for class B fire, it can be used for class C fire, the both type of class B fire, class C fire, but it cannot be used for class D and class K type of the fires. Then we have the M28, the powder as fire extinguisher. It can be used only against the class D type of fire. That means none of the fire extinguishers can work on class D fire except this fire, the extinguisher. Then we have got the carbon dioxide cylinders as fire extinguishers. It can work typically on class B liquids, and also it can work against electrical the fires. We have got wet chemical fire extinguishers. It can work on class A fire as well as it can work on class K type of fire. That means we have to use the appropriate type of fire extinguishers depending on the type of fire we intend to extinguish. Let's come to the last part of our today's discussion. So we have classified the fire as class A, B, C, D, and K. This is a classification as per the US system. That is, this is the American system of classification which I have discussed so far. If you have noticed in the first video which I played, there was a little difference in the classification. They didn't call kitchen fire as class K, they called kitchen fire as class F. And they said the electrical fires are not given any specific nomenclature. Now let's see. In both the US system as well as the UK system, some of the fires have got common nomenclature. For example, class A fire are same in both. The common combustible fires are named class A as per the US system, class B as per class A as per the UK system. There is no difference. So this is the one and the same. There is no difference as far as class A fire is concerned. Class B fire, both liquid as well as gas. As per the US system, it is class B. That is, both liquid as well as gas, the inflammable gases produce class B fire. But in UK system, they have got different nomenclature. Only the liquid fire is called class B, and the gaseous fire is called class C. So this is same, no change. So solids, liquid also there is no change, but here there is a change. The inflammable gases are called class B as per the US system and class C as per the UK system. With respect to the inflammable metals, there is no difference. It is called class D as per the UK system, class D as per class D as per the US system, as well as class D as per the UK system. There is no change. They are one and the same. Then coming to the next fire, we have got the class D fire. We have got the electrical fire, which is called class D as per US system. But as per the UK system, formerly they were called E. Now they have not given any nomenclature for electrical fire. They said electricity itself does not cause the fire. There are complementary reasons are causing fire. So they have not given any specific nomenclature for the electric fire. So the electric fires are called class C under US system, but they don't have any specific name as per the UK system. Coming to the kitchen fire, it is called class K as per the American or the US system. It is called fat fire or class F as per the UK system. This is a difference in the nomenclature with respect to the UK as for the US, the system of nomenclatures. Basically, the difference lies to class C fire, where the class C is the electrical fire in the US system, and class C is inflammable gases in the UK system. And the kitchen fire is given a name of class K under US system and class F as per the UK system. Well, friends, in this class, we discussed the different types of fires. Then we discussed different types of the fire extinguishers. We discussed what type of fire extinguishers can be used to extinguish what type of the fire. And also towards the end, we have seen that there are two systems of the nomenclature, the US system as well as the UK system. So there is broadly they are similar, but there are some differences in nomenclature. We have seen the differences with respect to the US system and UK system. Thank you.